Hey, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to Resting in Jesus. TomasHaggard Resting in Jesus, right? Um, I gotta pick a better time of day to do these videos. Uh, I've got my phone set on Do Not Disturb, but unfortunately it doesn't stop uh, my alarms and stuff going off. Uh, and Fortunately, I'm going to change something so that I won't be getting the one signal that keeps coming at me while I'm trying to do a video or phone calls. Mainly, I have three different people that are allowed to get through the do not disturb deal because of an emergency or something. But anyway, sorry. Bad. Today's message is, are we like Saul? And I'm not talking about Saul the apostle or the Saul the Pharisee that became the apostle and then later on started using the Greek version of his name, Saul, which was Paul. It's the same thing as my name. My name legally, birth name, is Thomas. In English, it's Thomas. Thomas. But in Spanish, my name is Tomas, which is Tomas, and the A usually has a little asterisk over it. It's not a name change, it's a name pronunciation change. And uh, that's a whole nother video, and we may do that one day. But today, we're talking about King Saul, and he never used his Greek version of his name. Oh, we like Saul, and I would hope that nobody's really like Saul, King Saul, because he really did some really wrongful, dumb stuff. And we're going to talk about why he did that, right? And, you know, after Paul was, after Saul was uh, confirmed and whatnot as the ruler, the king uh, of Israel, the Philistines came down to uh, wipe them out again. And so Saul was in Gilgal uh, waiting, and he had very few men because most of the rest of them had hidden in caves and holes and stuff. So then in verse 8, okay, this is Saul's first biggest mistake because he has other battles that he had done prior, and he won. God blessed him. God was there and defeated the enemy for him. It was beautiful, right? But this time Saul messes up. In verse 8 we read, now he waited 7 days, okay, according to the appointed time set by Samuel. But Samuel did not come to Gilgal, and the people were scattering from him. So Saul said, bring to me the burnt offering and the peace offerings. And he offered the burnt offering. And it came about as soon as he finished that, behold, Samuel came, right? And Saul went out to meet him and to greet him. Saul thinks he's doing a great thing, right? But what was Saul's biggest problem, right? His problem was he wasn't waiting on God. How many of us do the same thing? I have to admit, God called me to the full-time ministry, and in 2019 I started to do that, living out of my minivan at the time, which I turned into a little mini mobile home camper setup. And I tried to help God help me. And I couldn't get ahead. I couldn't work. It just never worked until I finally gave in and started doing things God's way. And then the ministry kicked off with a boom, and I was doing a whole lot better, right? But Samuel didn't wait on God. He got scared. Why? Because the people were scattering. His warriors were leaving him. They were afraid because Samuel hadn't showed up when they felt he needed to show up. And that's the problem with many of us. I had the same problem. We believe that God's supposed to show up, or he's supposed to do or bring or give you something you need right now. Sometimes God waits. He waits for the perfect time, right? The Philistines were moving around, and they didn't realize that God had a plan. And that's why Samuel didn't get there the minute they thought he should have been there. He got there in time within that 7-day period, because it was on day 7 when Saul started messing up. Let's continue reading. The biggest problem Saul did was he stepped out of place. He was the king of Israel. He wasn't a priest. And yet the title for this next section is called Saul Assumes Priestly Office. Okay. But Samuel said, "What have you done?" And Saul said, "Because I saw that the people were scattering from me, and that you did not come within the appointed days, and that the Philistines were assembling at Michmash. Therefore I said, now the Philistines will come down against me at Gilgal, and I have not asked the favor of the Lord." That wasn't his position, right? "So I forced myself and offered the burnt offering." Problem is, we think we're doing the right thing, taking matters into our own hands when God has told us he's going to do something for us. And then we lose out. And Saul did, right? Because it continues in verse 13. "And Samuel said to Saul, you have acted foolishly." Because anytime you do something against God, you don't follow his command, you get ahead of God, it's foolish. "You have not kept the commandment of Lord your God," right? "Which he commanded you. For now the Lord would have established your kingdom over Israel forever." In other words, his descendants would have reigned over Israel forever if he had just obeyed God's command. Okay? Which was wait. Verse 14, it says, "But now your kingdom shall not endure. The Lord has sought out for himself a man after his own heart, and the Lord has appointed him as ruler over his people, because you have not kept what the Lord commanded you. He lost his kingdom. For some of us, it could be our ministry. It could be our jobs and homes and everything else, because we didn't obey what God had asked us to do. I'm right there. My YouTube channel, because I have not been doing things right with God. This channel has depleted, has decreased in subscribers. In 3.5 years, I've only gained 89 subscribers. I had 91 at one time, and then it dropped down to 90. Went back to 91, then it dropped to 90, and then it dropped to 88 recently. I did, thank God, I did get somebody new subscribed. I don't know who, and so I'm at 89. But my views went from over 100 views on the videos, or at least 30, 40, 50, 60 views, down to 20 or less. My last video was 11. So I took my focus off of what God was wanting me to do. And I kept trying, I was more focused on getting views and getting subscribers, so that when I get 1,000 subscribers, I could start making money off of this. And I'm all focused on the money. And God's been trying to get me to stop focusing on that. He's going to provide where and how He wants to do. So I wasn't patient. Saul wasn't patient, and he lost his kingdom. His bloodline lost the kingdom. Right? So if you go through and read 13, 14, you see Paul makes a foolish order, telling everybody they can't eat until the battle's won. But the battle dragged on. It wasn't just an hour or a couple hours or anything. It was an all-day event, and the men were getting hungry and they were getting weak because they weren't snacking on something in between each fight, right? And but it was his son, Jonathan, who had got the battle started, but then he turned around and found some honey and decided he wanted some of that honey, and it revived him. And everybody let him know, dude, your dad said that we weren't allowed, that you would be killed. And then Saul realized he was going to have to kill his son because he had made that law. And I don't remember exactly what happened, but go read chapter 14, because you're going to realize how Saul is just acting in his own regards and not the regards of God. And Jonathan was spared, right? But in chapter 15, we're going to read a good chunk of this real quick. Saul's disobedience. Then Samuel said to Saul, starting in verse 1, chapter 15, the Lord sent me to anoint you as king over his people, over Israel. Now, therefore, listen to the words of the Lord. Okay. And I mean, because he's already messed up bad once, and now he's, and then he messed up with that order and almost got his son killed. And so Solomon is like, dude, pay attention. Thus says the Lord of hosts, I will punish Amalek for what he did, okay, to Israel. Now he set himself against him on the way while he was coming up from Egypt, he being Israel, okay. Now go and strike Amalek and utterly destroy all that he has, and do not spare him, right? But put to death both man and woman, child, infant, ox and sheep, camel and donkey. In other words, whatever is alive, kill it. Then Saul summoned the people and numbered them in Telaim 200,000 foot soldiers and 10,000 men from Judah, or of Judah. And Saul came to the city of Amalek and set an ambush in the city. And he said to the Kenites, go depart. Go depart from the Amalekites, lest I destroy you with them. For you showed kindness and all the to all the sons of Israel when they came up from Egypt. Right? So the Canaanites departed from among the Amalekites. Okay, yeah. Saul was doing a good thing there. In verse 7, so Saul defeated the Amalekites from Havilah as you go to Shur, which is east of Egypt. In other words, he wiped them all out. He captured Agag, the king of the Amalekites, alive. Take note. And utterly destroyed all the people with the edge of the sword. But Saul and the people spared Agag and the best of the sheep, the oxen, the fatlings, the lambs, and all that was good, and were not willing to destroy them utterly, but everything despised and worthless that they utterly destroyed. Question: did he obey God's command? Did he listen to the words of the Lord? And the people? Verse 10, Samuel rebukes Saul. Then the word of the Lord came to Samuel, saying, I regret that I have made Saul king, for he has turned back from following me and has not carried out my commands. And Samuel was distressed and cried out to the Lord all night. When God gives us a command or gives us a word, he expects us to listen. And when we don't, and we do just the opposite, we do what we want to do, it makes God sad and hurt. And all the people are messed up. Verse 12, and Samuel rose early in the morning to meet Saul, and it was told Samuel, saying, Saul came to Carmel, and behold, he set up a monument for himself. He set a monument for himself? That's idolatry, people. He's really stepping out of line. Then turned and proceeded on down to Gilgal. And Samuel came to Saul, and Saul said to him, Blessed are you of the Lord. I have carried out the command of the Lord. He does all this and he thinks he's doing what God said to do? But Samuel said, What then is the bleating of the sheep in my ears, and the lowing of the oxen which I hear? In other words, they were making their sounds, right? And Saul said, They have brought them from the Amalekites, for the people spared the best of the sheep and ox to sacrifice to the Lord your God. He didn't say to the Lord our God. He kept saying your God. And he blamed the people. That's the other thing people tend to do. And I've done that too. But the rest we have utterly destroyed. Yeah. Then Samuel said to Saul, Wait, and let me tell you what the Lord said to me last night. Because he had just spent an all-night event with God, crying. And he said to him, Speak. And Samuel said, It is not true, though you were little in your own eyes at the time, you were made the head of the tribes of Israel. In fact, in other words, when you thought you weren't anything, you were still made the head of the tribes, right? And the Lord anointed you king over Israel. And the Lord sent you on a mission and said, Go and utterly destroy the sinners, the Amalekites, and fight against them until they are exterminated. Right? Why then did you not obey the voice of the Lord, but rushed upon the spoil and did what was evil in the sight of the Lord? This happens a lot through the Old Testament, especially, right? Then Saul said to Samuel, I did obey the voice of the Lord and went on the mission on which the Lord sent me, and have brought back Agag, the king of Amalek, and have utterly destroyed the Amalekites. If we remember correctly, they were supposed to kill Agag. They were supposed to kill all the livestock. Nothing alive was supposed to live. Nothing, not even the best of the best, was supposed to live. Everything was to be destroyed, right? But oh no. And then they think, but we did what he said to do. How many of us, when we divert from what God said for us to do, we accomplish the bigger part, but we don't finish the job or do all the detailed stuff he said to do? And then we want to say, oh, but I did what he said. Think about it, people. But the people took some of the spoil. And here's Saul's, blaming the people again. Sheep and oxen, the choicest of the things devoted to destruction, to sacrifice to the Lord your God at Gilgal. And Samuel said, has the Lord as much delighted in burnt offerings and sacrifices? In other words, does God really love the sacrifices that much as to obey the voice of the Lord? Behold, to obey is better than sacrifice, and to heed than the fat of rams. For rebellion is as the sin of divination. Okay? And insubordination is a iniquity, which is a serious, heavy-duty, bad crime. Okay? And idolatry. Okay? I mean, he set up that monument for him, right? Because you have rejected the word of the Lord, he has also rejected you from being king. Then Saul said to Samuel, oh, I have sinned. I have indeed transgressed the command of the Lord and your words, because here's the key thing, I underlined this one, I feared the people and listened to their voice. Question, people. Should we listen to people or do we listen to God? Right? I would not be here right now if I had listened to people. And that was in verse 24. That's the biggest key thing right there. Now, therefore, please pardon my sin and return with me that I may worship the Lord. But Samuel said to Saul, I will not return with you, for you have rejected the word of the Lord, and the Lord has rejected you from being king over Israel. And as Samuel turned to go, Saul seized the edge of his robe, and it tore. So Samuel said to him, the Lord has torn the kingdom of Israel from you today, and has given it to your neighbor who is better than you. Verse 29. This is a key verse here, and there's a key word. And also the glory. That's something that everybody wants to get. I mean, I have had that problem. I didn't realize it. I kept thinking, no, I'm not after the glory, but I kept dreaming of preaching in stadiums and thousands and hundreds of thousands, tens of thousands of people, having hundreds of thousands of subscriber on my channel, and it just, yeah, I was there. And also the glory of Israel will not lie or change his mind, for he is not a man that he should change his mind. In other words, even the glory of Israel, no matter how great the glory you get from Israel, is going to change God's mind. Or in our case, the glory we get from the people, from all the likes, the views, the subscribers, are not going to change God's mind about you following or not following his word. Then he said, I have sinned, but please honor me now before the elders and my people before Israel, and go back with me that I may worship the Lord your God again. So Samuel went back following Saul, and Saul worshiped the Lord. And then Saul said, bring me Agag, the king of the Amalekites, and Agag came to him cheerfully. I mean, he's happy. He's alive, right? And Agag said, surely the bitterness of death is past. In other words, you're not going to kill me, right? But Samuel said, as your sword has made women childless, so shall your mother be childless among women. And Samuel hewed him, he killed him, he stabbed him. And Agag, he cut him up in pieces, really. Hewed Agag to pieces before the Lord at Gilgal. So the question that I want to ask all of you, question I've been asking myself for a few weeks, because in my Bible reading plan that I do each year, we just read through 1 Samuel and learned so much about what Samuel did and how he messed up. And that's, my heart's been heavy, and for the first time in years that I've been following God and hearing the stories of King Saul and all the stuff he did, and I always thought, man, I wouldn't have done that. And I realized I've been just like Saul, trying to justify the things that I do for the glory of God, when it was really for the glory of myself. And the question is, if what you're doing, if it's not for the glory for God, then why do it? All right? God wants you to give it all to Him. He wants you to understand that this isn't about us. It's about Him. And if we trust in Him enough, He will provide for us. We just got to trust, right? Well, I want to thank you all for tuning in. And for those of you that have watched till the end, thank you. And like I said in the beginning, hit the like button, hit the share button, and subscribe if you haven't subscribed. And then make sure, if you have subscribed, go in and make sure that you have clicked the all notification button, which turns black, so that you'll get all the notifications of when I'm doing a video, posting for the community, whatever, right? Otherwise, you can miss a lot. So do that. And if you have questions, you have need for prayer and stuff, put it in the comments. And if it's something more private, my email is down the bottom. Check out the description of the video. And if you decide you would like to support this ministry, then there's ways to do that down there. All right. So thank you. God bless you all. Have a blessed day.